This morning we'll begin with an Afrofuturist and Native Futures poem. This is Surveillance. Stoic, ancient sentinel, the blue heron, still and stern, waiting, watching us. Ardea Herodias with binocular vision, anti-glare depth perception, instantaneous telescoping tools. Piercing amber eyes, 14 million years, anti-glare, looking at today through profound portals. Mudia say, y'all scienceologists don't know nothing about nothing, 'cause you don't ever listen to a stream, a bird, a tree, a flower, a bug, a slug, marsh, a fish, a shell, a river, or sea, or ask them who they be. Pluck it, grind it, catch it, take it, kill it, mash it, steal it, pull it, smash it, see what come out, but don't never ask nature what they be doing first. Mudia say, blue heron tiptoe through the bayou and make like he fishing, but all the while he been sneaking up on you, watching you. You done seen him just now, sitting stock still like that, but he already done seen what you been doing all day, and he also done seen what you wasn't supposed to be doing last night, too. Ancestral technology scope, teleport through time. Who breathes? Living now. Living where? How? Guardian creeping across the marsh meadow, downloaded observances, saved and data sent, live stream. Back in time to bloodline lasting, the past people watching our bayou futures. Thank you. All right. Hey, y'all. Good morning. I'm Dr. Mel Lewis, and welcome to Artists and Advocates, a Waters Arts Showcased for a Unified Movement. I'm the executive curator of Root to Flourish Collective, and I'm also proud to be a River Network board member. Woo! I'm a Gulf South writer and transdisciplinary artist, an EJ advocate, and I'm from Bayou La Batterie, Alabama, an EJ community in the Gulf South. And my people are the Black, Creole, Native, and queer communities of the Gulf South. And I'm a Black Afro-Indigenous, non-enrolled community member and descendant of the Porch Band of Creek Indians located in Atmore, Alabama. I want to take this opportunity to name San Antonio's complex histories of colonization and the distinct yet deeply connected and interconnected histories of Native and Afro-descendant folks in this place. And I encourage all of us while we're here to learn deeply. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share a part of myself and my work with you, and now I'm honored to amplify the work of the incredible showcase artists today as a part of Rally. River Network would like to recognize that this plenary was organized by Sabrina Chapa, who is organizing as we speak. Thank you. Sabrina is the executive director and founder of Ties to La Tierra, an indigenous constituent community liaison for River Network and for River Rally 2026. Woo! And La Tierra's mission is to steward Mother Earth by promoting indigenous and transformative practices and community building. Ties boldly and vulnerably approach River Network, standing in power this year, extending an invitation to collaborate on the work of their mission through the platform that River Rally provides. Many of the Indigenous community members offering blessings, leading learning experiences, and attending the conference are solely because of the efforts of TIES, so thank you. The entire team of River Network, our staff, our board, recognize that collaborating with Native people and Indigenous nations is necessary and that we often fall short of the relational infrastructure needed to make these collaborations meaningful and successful. So thanks to partners like TIES and specifically to Sabrina, we have been gifted with the abundant opportunity to include culturally significant experiences and learnings at River Rally this year. Now I'd like to take a moment for us to co-create the vessel for this plenary today. I'd like everyone to take a deep breath together. One more. Let's collectively understand that when artists share their work in this way, that it's an offering, and that we are creating a reciprocal relationship that you're accountable for. We will share together something that is not transactional or performative, but really it is an act of community care. So, as a scholar of movements, we know as river and water and conservation advocates for the environment that there is no movement without artists. So we want to ground in that today and make sure that this is resonating for us in our hearts and in our work. So I invite you to participate, to be deeply engaged, and we look forward to this panel. So do I have your permission to proceed in that manner? Yes? Okay, thank you for your consent. All right, I'd like to welcome artists to the stage. Please help me to welcome. All right, we're going to begin with the Menchaca family. Celebrating 48 years of love and creativity, elders Miguel and Dora Menchaca from San Antonio have made their work as respected artisans and instrument makers. Renowned for their beautifully crafted hand drums and powwow drums, intricate jewelry, and vibrant mezcal art, their work reflects the rich cultural heritage of the community. Their artistry not only showcases traditional techniques, but also serves as a bridge for cultural education and appreciation. They strive to engage the community through workshops, exhibits, sharing their skills, stories to inspire future generations. Mike Menchaca is a San Antonio Indigenous artist and son of the West Side, where his family has lived and contributed to the community for generations. His musical practice centers on Indigenous flute, drum, and rattle, blending traditional forms with a modern sensibility. His roots trace back along the El Camino Real to Saltillo, Mexico, grounding his work in deep Indigenous and Tejano roots. Drawing from the ancestral rhythms and contemporary expression, his work reflects Indigenous music as a living, evolving tradition. And finally, for the Menchaca family, Angela Menchaca is a community advocate and educator and a descendant of the Coahuiltecan people. Her work is rooted in San Antonio missions, where she serves as a bridge between ancestral memory and modern community life. Carrying family names Menchaca and De La Garza, she honors the full story of her people through everyday practice and love. Angela holds degrees in psychology and curriculum instruction, utilizing her background to foster cultural healing and identity. At these historic sites, her presence as an Indigenous food representative at San Antonio's World Heritage Center serves as a living act of remembrance. By embracing the intersection of her history, she inspires others to see that the cultural revitalization thrives through simple, everyday acts of devotion. So thank you to the Menchaca family. Welcome to the stage.
Good morning, everybody. That was a mouthful from about our family. And those in the community who know us know that there's a lot to share about. You'll see the Menchaca name all throughout San Antonio, and there's a lot of reason for that. So thank you for having us here today. After that bio read, there's not much more I can say in the short amount of time that I have. So I have one big takeaway that I ask and that I want to share with you. To be equitable and culturally responsive in preservation, advocacy, and the use of our land, it's important to understand the people who use it. It's important to understand their stories. It's important to understand what it means to them, what it means to us, how it's being used, because without that piece of information, how do you know how to preserve? How do you know how to proceed moving forward? How do you know how to use the land and to take care of it and engineer it without an understanding of how the people want to use it? So that would be my big thing to share with you, because when I look at the water, I don't just see water. I don't just see it through one pigeonhole lens. I take an interdisciplinary approach to it and recognize that it is not just mine. It is not just being used by my family, but it is being used by all of us in so many different capacities. So with that, I will pass it along to my brother and my mom.
Hello. As you can see, that's why she is our speaker. Well, I'd just like to let you all know, thank you for having us here today. And we use water in all the different types of things that we do, of course. Water is life, and that's a lot. But we make hand drums, which I use the water to soften the hide, wash the hide. It has to be certain temperatures. My husband loves to make turquoise jewelry, which is blue, right? And it is also made, with water. So take care of it, people, please. We need to take care of our water. We need to quit polluting it and have for our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, And that's it for me. Thank you.
Can you believe she's my mom? Look how small she is and how big I am. The il manam, everyone. That's how we say good day in our language. I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to talk about my artistry working with jewelry, my music, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my work as a family historian. So if I get a little bit lost on that, kind of remind me where I'm going, because I'm used to playing the flute in front of people and not talking, so this is a little bit of a change for me. Okay, so Mom, can you hold up your jewelry? Some indigenous cultures choose turquoise as their stone because it signifies water, right? And they believe it carries an energy with it, and it carries properties of healing and of power, right? It's very spiritual when you think about it like that, when you think of a rock that's been around. Anybody who studies geology knows it takes thousands of years to make something like that, right? I'm gonna get a little bit scientific. So on this end of it, turquoise is a very porous rock, right? Water flows through it, and the minerals that are carried in water, right, that go through that rock determine how it looks. So each one of those stones comes from a different region and can be tied into that region, right? So when I'm working with these stones, I've got this in my mind, right? I'm working with it, and I'm thinking about, man, what are we going to be putting into the water and into the land that's going to go into the water? How are these stones going to look 1,000 years from now? What story is it going to tell, right? Because now we know, we know what goes into that. We know scientifically what goes into that. And really, when you think about everything that goes into making that stone, that's where I really find my spirituality, right? The science brings me, my spirituality takes me into science, and the science brings me back into spirituality. So it's a flow very much like a river, right? So I'll transition that into my music. With my music, it's very much the same way. When I'm playing, a lot of times I'm not even thinking about, I don't have a set music I'm gonna sit down and play. It flows out of me, right? And I'll tell you sometimes when it's not hitting right and the music notes are not coming out right, I look down at my fingers after I'm playing for a while, and I'm looking down at my fingers, and my fingers are really depressed and they have like indentions in them. I'm dehydrated. And that's what that means. I've been doing whatever I've been doing. I haven't been taking care of myself and putting that hydration into myself. Now, these days, you can't just put any water into yourself, right? Because if you just drink pure tap water, you're further dehydrating yourself. Now we got to put salt packets and everything else into it, to make it to where we can actually hydrate ourselves. So when I think about that, I was like, man, when were the days when you can actually just go by the stream and drink some spring water, right? And just, that had everything you needed because it had bits of minerals, it had a little bit of bacteria your gut needed. You don't need to have probiotics or whatever else we got to take too, right? I mean, there's a lot of things we got to think about now, right? And it's because there's a lack, right? Or a resource that's being hindered in a way to where we're not getting what we need, right? And I'll transition that into the historical part with our family. So as Calhuitecans from here, some of the spring waters that our ancestral spring waters are like right here in Brackenridge Park, right? I don't know if y'all are from out of town or if not, but if you aren't, and even if you are, and if you're not familiar with the area, I suggest you go walk around Brackenridge Park and read the signage around there, right? Because there's a lot of signage that says you cannot get into the water, okay? Now, these are areas where our ancestral people used to go tan hides and use the water, make canoes, do our fishing, all of that stuff. But there's signs there that say we cannot go into that water, right? And it's for health reasons. So I want you to do the research. I hope you go find out why. Because those are the kind of things you guys influence, right? And those are the kind of things that keep us away from doing the intentional things we want to do to keep living in the ways our ancestors did, to keep that connection alive and strong, right? So I think and I'm going to leave you with this little story. I homeschool my kid, right? I've got a 9-year-old boy, right? And they do homeschool groups here around the city to do little events, and one of the things about being part of the group is you gotta schedule an event and lead the event, right? So one of the parents arranged an event there at Brackenridge Park, right? And we get there late, my son and I, right? And we show up, and everybody's in the waters. The kids are playing in the water, right? I'm like, no, like, look, son. I go, he really wanted to get into the water, right? But I know better, right? I grew up here. I know why the signs are there, right? And I said, it broke his heart not to let him play with his friends. But I go, look, son, look. And I had to go over there and start telling the other parents. I go, look, read the signs. It's here for a reason. You know what I mean? And they had to get out and everything. And it was kind of a bummer, right? But that's the everyday thing, right? So we can go all the way down to the turquoise and take it to the spiritual level, what it means to tribal people. But the reality is, kids can't play in these waters for certain reasons, right? That's today.
We used to splash in the water.
We used to splash in that water too.
Not that long ago.
Absolutely. And also, here's another thing. As vendors, right? You see people in the San Antonio River jump in and start playing around in the water, right? Well, there's a history with that water too, right? So it's not always, it would be nice, just to see people jump in and have a good time, and the worst thing would be a boat come by and hit them or whatever, I mean, that would be, the best of it, I mean, hey, all we can do is say, hey, this is what we're doing and why we're doing it. These are the thoughts and intentions we have into our art, right? and the everyday, and that spreads into everyday life. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to share, and thank you. That's all I got.
Many thanks to the Mantaka family. Next, we would like to introduce Jacqueline Salgado. And Jacqueline is an established muralist, cultural bearer, and multidisciplinary artist who identifies as Chicana and Gachgaltec and is a member of the Ojibwe Chippewa Sainte Marie tribe. She explores the diversity within mixed media and is well known for her dark aesthetic and indigenous-centered work, utilizing both wildlife, references, and traditional teaching to honor both land and water rights. Through her work, she strives to advocate for wildlife, clean water, and environmental justice, tying themes of traditional spirituality to mark her art. Her most popular mural was commissioned by DC Folklorico Dance and featured at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery in Washington, DC, which furthered her local and statewide popularity with her career in murals and original mixed media works focused on the Ojibwa 7 grandfather teachings. Welcome to the stage.
Bonjour and dinner maganadog anin. Hello, thank you all for being here. I just said hello, all of my relatives in traditional Ojibwe Chippewa. And it is an honor to be here. Thank you for holding space for these indigenous voices. And it is not only an honor, but it is a privilege and a huge responsibility as an indigenous woman and as a matriarch of both lineages. Not only am I honored to be a descendant of a tribal northerner, of a woodland tribe, but I'm also a southerner from Mexico. So, you know, I'm tied to this land, what a lot of people like to call Aslan, because before we had borders, before colonialism, we were all, you know, here, united. And I really think it's important to touch base on the fact that, as you know, the Menchaca family mentioned, water is life. And all of us, no matter where we're from, we came from water in the womb of our mother. We all had that established connection. And as soon as we understand the importance of that connection to the land, the connection and the ties that we have to our relatives, it really does change your perspective on things. As an Anishinaabe Kwe, as an Ojibwe Chippewa woman, it's important for me to center myself around these 7 grandfather teachings, some of which are forthrightness, humility, integrity, courage, kindness. And these are things I feel like a lot of you can connect to in your work and in solidarity. That's very commendable. So give yourselves, you know, a pat on the back, round of applause for that, because that is a huge step. You know, a lot of people overlook the work that it takes to advocate for the land, to advocate for the water. And something that I think is really important for us to remember is that we relate in Dinuemag. We are all related. And as Anishinaabe, if you translate that, it means the first people of this land. When my people first took the long walk from northern Maine, we were given a prophecy, a vision of you will reach your land when you find where your rice grows on the water. And finally, in the dead of winter, that's where we found where we now are, the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Michigan. And it's a beautiful thing to be tied to the water and tied to the land, and that's why it's such a huge responsibility to be able to advocate for not only wildlife, but also all of our relatives. I am no better than my relatives. I'm no better than the tree outside, than the water, the animals. And so it's very I would like to say, centered in my work, to stay within that and to reframe and give people the opportunity to reframe their lens, because I think art is a powerful tool. It's not meant to disrupt. It's actually meant to help you understand yourself better, to shift your perspectives. And sometimes those things can be scary. You can look and say, man, there's a lot of microplastics in this water. I don't know if I want to get in here, And there are times where I go to the coast and I'm just like, we'll just tan a little bit on the sand. It's a little bit scary because, we have a better understanding now that indigenous culture and medicine is backed by science. We can understand that these things do hold truth. And so for us, when we're holding different kinds of, grievances, what we do is we go to the water and we speak to the water. The same way that, people go to church, or they would speak to a pastor, or they would speak to a counselor. We go to the water and we say our prayers. And I think, that's something that I hold very near and close to my heart. And it's just a point of humility, of being able to understand that this is not just my weight to carry. This is something that I can share with my relatives, and understanding that your voice holds weight. It does carry that prayer. And for us, we believe that whenever the sound of your voice is spoken over those waters, it creates a connection to the heavens. It creates a connection to everyone that came before you, that they hear your prayer, not only to your Creator, but to the land. And when you have that connection to the land, it does make a huge impact. I don't know if you guys have seen those science, back journals where they talk about when you speak into the water and then you put it in the freezer. Have you seen that? Oh my God, it's mind-blowing. You freeze the water that you speak negativity into. It's completely warped. And then you speak truth and kindness and positivity into this other water, and you freeze it. And it's just all of these beautiful patterns. And it's insane because we are made up of mostly water. So I want to encourage you all to, take that step and be able to connect with those around you, because with these 7 grandfather teachings that I talk so much about, it's being able to do the good for not only yourself, but the 7 generations behind you. You're representing more than your family currently here. You're representing 7 generations that existed for you to be here. And doing the work, making the change to be able to do things for 7 generations after you to make sure that they have it better. And so I am really honored to be here. Thank you, Sabrina, for having us. Thank you to all my fellow artists for being here, and thank you all for hearing me speak. It's really exciting to, just have a moment to talk a little bit more about then why I chose this color or that. But, I think it's really exciting to have a unified movement. And so, Chimi Gwech for the opportunity to speak, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And next to the stage, we have Sunshine Dahosehi, or Chiara. Chiara is an indigenous resistance artist who focuses primarily on collage in efforts to express a sensation of putting things together and many broken, separated pieces into one new, intentional, and revitalized unit, cohesive unit. Her work touches on topics of decolonization, resistance, politics, reparation, and land back, all while reminding the viewer that yes, something beautiful can be made out of something ugly. She creates out of necessity to express what cannot be expressed with just words, and achieves catharsis and hopes that the viewer will too. Thank you.
Forgive me as I try to figure out this clicker. Okay. Hello, my name is Kiara. That's the name that's on my driver's license. The name that my people call me is Sunshine. In our language, Sehe. And my introduction to y'all was a traditional one, just sharing that I'm witnessing you, I'm beholding you. As my introduction stated, I'm an Indigenous resistance educator and artist, and I'm also a fantastic multitasker as I pull up a timer for 10 minutes. We can do it all, folks. All right, surrounded by great minds. Okay. Did you know that you're all going to die? It's inevitable. It's something that moves the human beings to do incredible feats of scientific discovery, reclamation of culture and heritage. The human being goes their whole lives trying to create, to grow. And each of us pick a different path on what exactly that means and how it looks tangibly. My people are the Karankwa. Our ancestral and contemporary homelands are the Gulf Coast of these lands that are now known as Texas. Our territory expands as low down south as South Padre Island, and then extends all the way up the Gulf Coast to the lands that are now known as Galveston and Houston. And depending on who you ask, our territory can go as far inland as 50 miles or 100 or so. For those of us that are a bit more ego-driven, it's hundreds. But no, it's not. We're on the Gulf Coast. In our language, we have countless words for water. Not just water as we know it, and I'm not even just referencing like the bay, the Gulf, but just countless words for water and how different she can be after a storm, how she can appear like Mercury whenever there's that foggy sunrise over the Gulf Coast, how she reflects the sunrise and the moon as it rises above her. And when the settlers first arrived on our shores, our name for them was the strangers from across the water. Eventually, that name changed to the pigs from across the water. My people were reported to have been killed, extinct. Being a Gulf Coast community meant that you received all the settlers first, and it shouldn't be a shock to any of us in this room as educated peoples that there has been continuous propaganda to disparage the indigenous person and deny our existence, and in turn consistently discredit indigenous science that only contemporarily we've been able to back. All of that is to say, to be a Karankwa woman is very painful, and so I use art as a method of catharsis. The pieces that I've chosen here to show for y'all center something to do with water. In our language, we also have no word for resource, no word for profit. We consider her our relative. And I deeply implore each of y'all who will continue to work in spaces where water is a topic to completely disavow that idea that she is a resource. Thank you. Language is incredibly powerful. You can take it from me, a language keeper for our people, where we've been doing the work to revitalize our language. But that terminology begs for us to sit with it for a moment, for when our relatives are just resources, albeit natural resources, their job is to be extracted upon. And if a resource is extracted upon, it is only inevitable because the human being is simple and tied to greed and ego, that we start to then exploit her. But she is our mother, and she is our relative. Just like those of us who have wonderful relationships with our own mothers, we can know that we can only push her so far. Luckily, the indigenous peoples are still here, and we all have been steadfast in telling all of y'all, whether these are your ancestral homelands or whether you are a descendant of the Anglo-European settlers that arrived on our shores not too long ago, that the earth is alive and that we are intrinsically and deeply connected to her. What happens to her happens to us, and we are simply not as tough as her. There was a very cute saying. It started in the 70s, and I still hear it every so often. Save the planet. I have always imagined it very cute. Save the planet. The human being on our own cannot save her. Mother Earth is so strong. I've even argued that it is not saving that she needs. She needs advocacy. She needs defending, but more importantly, she needs reconnecting. That statement, save the planet, I imagine, is a very deep admission that the human being understands that we are one and the same with her. Really, what we're saying when we say that, save the planet, is save the human being. Y'all are on the lands that are now called Texas. And all the Texans here know that the most consistent headlines that have been in our faces recently is Texas is running out of water. Specifically, my homelands, the Gulf, Corpus Christi, is going to be reported as one of the first cities to lose their water. We don't have many elders in my family. We have elders in the tribe, but our elders don't live that long because they get sick from, I almost said the water, but it's not the water's fault. It's the humans, some humans, with names and addresses, by the way. It's our duty as human beings who are going to die to do the work that will liberate the future generations from having to do it. And what an honor it is to do that. How we can further this work is by also involving indigenous people and their testimony. I was just listening to an interview on NPR. Any NPR fans in here? Yeah? Okay, great. I just started. I had no idea. It's good stuff, right? So maybe you've heard this as well. Recently, scientists have discovered that seeds can hear. Seeds can hear when water is falling, when water is running, when raindrops are falling around them. If a seed hears water, they don't even need to be in it. They will start to sprout. And as I was listening to this interview in my car, driving to who knows where, I said to myself, yeah, I know. This is what it is like to be an indigenous person. It's been like banging on the doors of our roommates who have stayed way too long. Telling y'all, hey, there's dishes in the sink. There's trash to be taken out. I've done my part. How about yours? We're stuck together, all of us. This piece is called Isolated Soul. Your drinking water has been poisoned. I remember learning that there is no rain that falls anymore that is clean. There's stuff in it. And so I made this piece, and when I posted it on my social media, a friend I had from Gaza had been messaging me, and they said to me, thank you, Isolated Soul, for sharing this testimony. We also have no water here. We are so lucky. We're very privileged people here in these spaces on these lands that are now called the United States to just have a passport. But make no mistake, the environmental reality of it all is that we are just as vulnerable as the ecosystem. And I implore y'all to change the verbiage and how you imagine building your relationships with the land and the water and what you call her and who you get your information from. It can be scholarly spaces. You can have many degrees. You can read as many books as you'd like. But our people have been here on these lands, for no exaggeration, thousands of years. We know her very well. And if you want to get the inside scoop on how to better her and help her, you must speak to us. Thank you for extending the invitation.
Thank you. Next to the stage, Masochi Cortez. Masochi is woven from Chichimecan and Coahuiltecan lineages as a queer indigenous resistance artist and educator and community organizer. They use storytelling as a pathway for collective liberation. They are a host with Every Word Poetry, a Black and Indigenous-led spoken word organization in so-called Austin, Texas. As a part of the Native American Cultural Center, they assist in programming, creating access to cultural arts and education. They are the creative director of Land Justice Community School, activating art and education as activism. Their poetry can be found in Poetry Society, New York's Milk Press, Native Land Digital, BK Magazine, and more. The seeds of their storytelling ask what liberation means, what we will do to get there for all people, and what narratives we honor during our path of healing. Welcome.
Amanam, Mashochi Pono. Yomanam to Sabrina and the River Network and everyone here. These are my homelands. Welcome. I'm sure you've seen the San Antonio River. I promise it used to be prettier. I hope you enjoy the river walk regardless. I know it's a very popular tourist destination. Lands serve as ancestors, offering healing, sacred lineages long as rivers, bloodlines, remembering, collaborating, relations resisting, and today, the water and the buffalo bring us home. The story of return. Our relationships are our homes to heal in. And so whenever I think about water, something that really makes me angry is whenever people talk about her as a resource. Like Kiara said, she is not a resource, she is our relative. And we all have this relationship to her. We all have this responsibility to her more than anything. And so my demand, respectfully, is that you do refer to her as a relative, not a resource. Because it is the language that we use that creates the narrative. And it is the narrative that continues to perpetuate harm, not just on our relative, the water, but on people. Like Kiara said, the world would be fine without us. In fact, she might be better without us. And that's a little controversial because at the same time, we have amazing stewards that do take care of her. And at this point, it's hard for me to say that she would be better with us because of the way that people are not taking that responsibility. And so my demand is that you stop calling her a resource. She's our relative, and at the end of the day, whenever we talk about protecting water, we're talking about protecting people, not just human people. We're talking about the otter people, the fish people, the turtle people, all of the people who have a relationship to her. I am a storyteller. Some people like to call us poets. Storytelling predates poetry, though, and we all know that, especially us up here. Our oral history is storytelling. I have a couple poems that I want to share, but maybe not all of them. I kind of just liked the aesthetic of some, so I put them. But this one, this is a picture of the San Marcos River, which is one of our 4 sacred springs. As I was introduced earlier, I am Chichimecan Coetecan, which means I am indigenous to here, Texas, and northern Mexico. This spring, the San Marcos Springs, is one of our 4 sacred springs and a part of our creation story. And as one of our relatives shared earlier, we all have a relationship to our waters, right? But we also have a relationship to each other. Actually, the wild rice that grows in the San Marcos River comes from up north, from my friends' people right over there. And so whenever I think about water, I think about migration. Our people always followed the water. It is our birthright. And I think it's important to not include indigenous people, but to center indigenous people. And I think that's another way that the language needs to be reframed, because whenever we talk about including indigenous people, that is not environmental protection or stewardship. Point blank, period. It's not. You cannot protect a land that you do not have a deep relation to in a sustainable, in a responsible way, if it is not centering the indigenous people who have always had that relationship and responsibility to it. And so these are dreams the water showed me. It came in waves of we used to collect pecans and brown palms along string. Dream. A family of Panama frolicking, medicine rooting your tamoh, right with hands of flowers. Mirror fish smiles, pebbles glittering. There is no beyond water. Life finds you here. Child, tell that story. Banned from tongue. We used to be so close, our feet always wrapped in spring. We used to fish here and visit the Ini, Iyane, and now they call them buffalo. Now they find skulls, no hearts beating. Taptai. I dreamt they were still here like we are. My dream is them returning like the language. Nakaham. And so really this is a memory. Water carries memory. This dream I have isn't some reality that is so far from what could be. It is what is and what was and what has been taken from us. And this is a dream that I see happening in the future again. And I'm going to pivot here a little bit because I wouldn't be me if I didn't get political. And the reality is this is political, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room know that. Because just like our existence is political, whether we like it or not, her existence is political. And so whenever we talk about water, we need to be thinking about who is actually here to protect water and steward water. I know it's us. I know it's some of y'all, hopefully all of y'all, right? But I think there is
like I said, a responsibility, and I do 100% believe that responsibility is centering the people who have been stewarding these lands for a long time. It also means recognizing that conservation and protecting water cannot happen without disruption. It can't. We can't be just asking for things. We need to be demanding. And we also have to be real honest about the integrity to do so. Having us here is a start, but it's only the beginning. And to steward and protect life that literally gives us life, right? Because water is life. It requires solidarity, and solidarity requires sacrifice. And that means not keeping quiet when you know data centers and the tech world are frothing at the mouth to dissipate our water into thin air. It means naming that this very city, San Antonio, has little to no watershed creeks, no clean water like our relatives set up here. Our children can't even play in it. And that there are already 40 data centers here in San Antonio in partnership with Military City, USA. And I grew up here. I'm born and raised San Antonio. I have never been able to have access to clean water. And I've seen so many of my relatives go down a very dark path because of the lack of green spaces that we have here in this city, because of the industrialization, because of the military-industrial complex. And that is not an isolated story. That is all over the world, actually, but especially here. And so to do this work, it means to correct who is leading and being centered in this space. And my belief is that Black and Indigenous people should be the ones centered in this space, because we have been the ones stewarding the land and most impacted by environmental racism. We are the ones that are experiencing our relatives getting sick and not being able to live until their old age. And so, to go back to the poetry, I think rage is ancestral rage, sacred rage, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes people can be intimidated by it, but I know in my heart it comes from love. And so I don't ever apologize for it. And to learn about love, true love, we must return to the land. There is an ecosystem living in every relation. It brings a memory, collected connections. Water is life. It carries our reflections, our depths, our dreams, generations of protection. And there is an offering, a teacher in every mirror, a relative that has seen us before we have even seen ourselves. And there is a form of healing that can only be found in a community of land defenders, of buffalo learners, protecting love for the liberation of all our relatives. Because love is a lineage. That's like one of my favorite things to say nowadays. I added last minute, thank you Sabrina, this last poem, which I'll probably close out with. This poem, I really love the shape of it. Obviously, it's, supposed to be a drop of water if you didn't get the hint. And I think similar to Kiara, my art is very deep. It's very full of grief. And to me, that's liberating, because I like to tell people, if you came to hear my poetry and laugh, you might get a couple in there, but really I speak what I speak about because I think people have the responsibility to hold that space with me, with my community. And so my poetry is very deep, it's very sad, but it's also a reflection of the work that we can all do to address this. I fear that generations of floodwaters have filled Noishtil, my eyes, with memories, braids cut from the scalp secretly hunted. I fear they are still hunting. They come for our children, our elders, our time, all of our relatives drowned in the floods, and we sing for our future where our waters fill our riverbeds. Where they fill our riverbeds, not live in our lungs or eyes, our water songs, tongues remembering, wana ways of life, and I hope our children will remember the way I have. Follow the roots. Don't get caught in the floodwaters. They could leave your sight blurry, unable to see. So heal for a generation or two so they too may remember our land, the creation story. Remember your mother tongue. Every generation, remembering. Don't forget me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Masochi. Next to the stage, we will bring Marco Cervantes. Mixstep is a rapper, producer, DJ, and scholar based in San Antonio, Texas. He performs as a solo artist and is a member of the hip-hop group Third Root. Along with his historic artistic work, he is an associate professor of the Department of Race, Ethnicity, Gender, and Sexuality Studies at the University of Texas in San Antonio, and researches Black-Brown cultural and political overlap. Thank you. Next up.
Thank you. It's a true honor being here. And in my music, it made me really look in and take some introspection of how I'm using water. And I see water as a metaphor for memory, movement, survival. And in my music, I use hip hop, cumbia, reggae, corrido, soul, and storytelling. My name is Mexstep. That's my artist name, also Marco Cervantes. I'm a solo artist, and I'm also in a collective called Third Root, and we work to bridge Black and brown love and solidarity. I'm Chicano, and a lot of the work that I do is also centering indigenous histories within my own identity, and it's some work that we continue to do in the community and the university as well. I see rivers, land, animals as landscapes, living histories. I show the connection between environmental justice and social justice in my music. I see hip hop as an expression that can help inform Black, indigenous, and Chicano political consciousness, and I've seen that with bridges being built with indigenous artists in Colorado and New Mexico, for instance, just seeing how hip hop is able to create these bridges and create these spaces that help us to inform our community education, inspire resistance, healing, and activism. And then from my own history growing up, hip hop gave me a way to explore my own identity, my own culture, my own history. I'm thinking about Public Enemy's song, By the Time I Get to Arizona, as an example, which highlighted and looked at the history of Arizona being the last state to recognize MLK's birthday as a national holiday. It's just little examples like that to show how hip hop helped to inform my identity. And again, in my music, when I was doing some introspection, I see water is life, rivers connecting communities across borders, and how colonialism disrupts these relationships of land to water, and environmental destruction disproportionately impacts indigenous, Black, and brown communities, and pronouncing water challenges these rigid national borders and colonial ownership. I'm gonna get into, am I doing this wrong? Oh, okay. And let's see, so I don't know if this is gonna play. Okay, could you play this for me? This is a song called The Eagles, my latest single, and I'm looking at how the Rio Grande River between the US-Mexico border is really disrupting natural movement. I think these are artificial borders. This is indigenous land. To say this is US or Mexico, those nation states are just, false.
With the deal that went on all along. War across the border, reported stocks and profits in order from farmers to factory workers and maquiladoras exported labor and land exploited revenue for a few. Laws passed to keep out, the eagle keeps on flying through.
The eagle flies back and forth, crossing state lines. The eagle flies back and forth, crossing state lines. The eagles back and forth, crossing lines. eagle flies back and forth, crosses, line.
Yeah, so in the music, I work to reclaim indigenous. Thank you. Reclaim indigenous relationships to land and push back against colonized ways of thinking when talking about the U.S.-Mexico border. I'm gonna go ahead and get into the next one here. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm just gonna play just a little bit of this out of interest of time. This is another song labeled "Enemy," working to really point out the miseducation that we get here in Texas. I didn't get any indigenous history, any Mexican American history, Chicano history. So this is one of the songs talking about that.
This land and then they told the history. Made up heroes, memories, and labeled enemies. Occupied and colonized with slavery and genocide. Separation, borderlines, called uncivilized. Painted a period in the curriculum when they depicting the savage vicious. Might be sick of us, can't get rid of us. There is no end to us, stand up limitless. We'll be here, have been here before it all went up. Working and striving and living and digging to harvest the land that we come from. Fighting against deceiving, robbing, stealing in the evening, thieving. Texas Rangers shooting, killing, open season in this region. Every Mexican a target, lynched in the market. Omitted from the textbook, paragraphs and margins. My reality, they question nationality. Pull me over, search me, lock me up or kill me. Lost history, stolen legacy, label enemy, passed down for centuries.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and cut it off now. Thank you. Thank you so much. Like I said, it's really an honor being on this panel, learning so much and hearing all the beautiful words, the beautiful artwork, the powerful artwork, and the powerful words. I'll just end here with my final thoughts, saying that water and nature are really survival and resistance. Hip-hop can be a tool of decolonization and collective consciousness. And environmental justice and racial justice are deeply connected. Once again, a big honor. Thank you so much. Next step, Marcos Cervantes.
Thank you so much, Next Up. All right, our final artist is Timoteo Aikoshi Montoya. Aikoshi Montoya, or Ike, is an Elder and Lipan Apache multimedia artist and was originally born in Corpus Christi, Texas, now living in Brackettville, Texas, which the Lipan people call Ko'i'i, and is the site of one of Texas' sacred springs. The two crafts that flow through Ike are silversmithing and airbrush graphic paintings. Elder Ike teaches us that things are not what they seem with an intentional judgment or conclusion. The story of each piece unfolds the more one lets the details speak. Thank you.
Chiquea, so, all my relations. She held up my inde. I'm the Apache. She Ka'abisla. My name is Arrow Point Maker. My given name is Timoteo Aikoshi Montoya. I'm originally from Corpus and a member of the Lipan Apache Band of Texas. So Shikel it means all my relations. It's a term coined by our Lakota relatives to the north, but a lot of us use it these days, and it's sometimes we begin our prayer and end our prayer or begin a discussion with all my relations because it acknowledges the fact that we're all related in whatever we do or as human beings, planet, the four directions, you name it. We're here talking about water. I'm a little nervous, so you're gonna have to bear with me. We're here talking about water. Water is life, and a lot of our ceremonies, a lot of us go to, we have water. We have water because we know how important it is, And some of us have been to ceremonies where we have no water. We go without water or food for 4 days. So we learn the importance, especially if you're a man, and I guess most people would learn the importance of how valuable it is, and that all your food, where your food comes from, the earth, And we acknowledge our women as the life givers because they bear life. And when they bear life, the water comes first, and then the life comes. So everything we do, and we know the way the planet is made up, we know what we're made up of, water and everything else. So women are the life givers. And myself, I have been thinking about a lot of things, and men these days are the life takers. They take life. They're responsible for all the war, all the digging and destruction of mountains and rivers and the ore, and they grab the oil, everything. Orphans, maiming people. Men are life takers. And I think the reason, from what I understand and from what my elders told us, is that if men don't have enough ceremony in their life, and I don't mean just one day out of the week, I mean every day, they don't have that, because most ceremonies, their structure are all feminine in nature. And a lot of men, or a lot of times, a lot of the ceremonies I went to, men do run them. And my uncle would say, "Oh, you see how men run these ceremonies all the time?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "And women don't?" And I said, "Yeah, I understand. I see that." And he says, "It's not that women have their ceremonies. They do have their ceremonies, but that's all their business, and, men have our ceremonies." But he said, if you look at the structure of the ceremonies, they're all feminine in nature. Whether they're held in a teepee, which is, they say, a woman's skirt, and those teepee flaps, those are her arms welcoming everybody into her home. The sweat lodge is made up of willows, which they call the ribs of the Mother Earth. It's called the womb of Mother Earth. We're her children. We go in, and when we come out, we are all slippery and wet like when we were born. And the water is in there, the rocks from the earth. Everything is from the earth, And so that all that feminine energy, they say if men don't have enough ceremony in their life, that's when they get coarse. Their hearts become encrusted, and then they start destroying things. So, I raised my boy up like that, and my daughter, and most of all my friends I hang out with, we all go there, So, as men, we need that. We need more ceremony in our lives. I don't know what it's going to take for y'all. I know some of y'all are, not even got Christian ways or whatever kind of ways. But I want to encourage you to be more ceremony in your life, even to come ceremony with us. It's good. We want to share it with you. It really doesn't, our ceremonies don't belong to us. They belong to God. We're just, or the creator, the creatress, or whatever that energy is, gave us those ceremonies, so that we can keep ourselves in good stature. Anyway, I want to thank you, Sabrina and Mel. Where are you? Somewhere? Oh, way over in the corner. Yeah, for, taking care of us, and for all of y'all for coming together, because, we need to align. We need to go forward. We need to align ourselves. It's important, Time's a wasting, The earth is, I heard tell that they were talking about, the climate change and all that, and a lot of people acknowledge it. A lot of people don't acknowledge it. As Native people, because of our connection, we have been witnessing it for quite a while now. Ever since Mount St. Helens went off, that change started occurring. We were, when Mount St. Helens went off, that sister, our prophets had already told us about that, and that's when everything was going to start changing, and we're right with it right now. The earth is not waiting for us to get it together, so it's going to do what it's going to do, and we're beginning to see that. She's a woman, and again, the feminine energy, you know, I mean, if you think about it, men have been in charge of this part of the country and a lot of the world for over 500 years. And the neighborhood isn't the same, I must say. It's getting a little shaky now, you know. So, and we all know who you are, you know. We know there's a lot of men responsible for that, and you know, you should be, you know, you're supposed to represent us, your leadership, you know, and we depend on you, you know. And I'm going to say, if you don't do your job, we're going to fetch you up out of there, and we're going to get somebody else in there. Yeah, we're going to have to do that. Yeah. So, you know, it's all up to us. We're in alignment together. And, yeah, just, so another thing, too, is men, we got to start letting our women step up. Need to do that. You know, we see it here. You know, we see it here. The water board meetings that we go to over in Kinney County, pretty much all men. There's a secretary, an older woman, all guys, all old fossils, Magani, you know, and their ideas are just as fossilized as ever. So, and you know, we're going toe to toe with them, and we got some. You know, you know, they start with a prayer, you know, which is great, asking God for rain, and then I don't know what then after that they kind of misuse it, so I don't know why they keep asking for it, but, and then, you know, they pledge allegiance for liberty and justice for all. I'm like, you know, that's a bunch of bullshit too, you know. I mean, you know, as an American citizen, you know, I'm for it. I say the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, I'm not going to burn that flag. You know, my fathers were veterans, uncles. You know, I have veterans. I'm not going to burn the flag. I'm not going to do it. So, you know, but you know, I was watching that whole interaction in that committee meeting, and you know, and they've been telling me, why don't you get up there and say something? And you know, I can't speak that language. I don't know about all those graphs and all that stuff. That's all gringo voodoo. You know, I don't understand it. You know. So, you know, and I'm watching all that, and I thought, when it came down to it, I'm going to drink some water. And what Magaani, the white man, did to us Indians, they're doing it to y'all now. Yeah, they're doing it to y'all. So we got to get together and take care of business. Shike also.
Yes, thank you, Ike. Well, this has been a call to action, everyone. Has that resonated? Are you present to it? Water is life. Water is our relative, not a resource. Our relationship with water can't be separated from our foodways, from our communities, from our well-being, from our ceremony, from our art, from our soul, our spirit. As water and river advocates in this room, we are all calling for you to be in deep relationship with water, to center Native relationships and perspectives in your work, to get in alignment, because the earth is not waiting. So that's your work, that's your responsibility. And again, this has been a call to action. Thanks to the artist. Join me in thanking everyone. Woo! Thank you, Sabrina, and Ties to La Tierra. And thank you to the AR team. Thank you.